When Sandra returned to the village, nobody ran to welcome her. The same dusty road she had once walked with pride now seemed longer, hotter, and harder beneath her worn slippers. She came down from the bus with only one small bag, a faded blue wrapper folded over her arm, and a silence that sat heavily on her shoulders. Years earlier, when she first left for the city, people had waved at her with envy. They had said she was lucky. They had said beauty like hers would open doors. Some even whispered that she would never remain a servant for long. Sandra herself had believed it. She had stepped into that city full of ambition, full of dangerous hunger, and full of the foolish belief that another woman's home could become her own. Now she was back, not as a success, not as a madam, but as a woman carrying the weight of disgrace. At the motor park, two women selling roasted corn recognized her at once. Their voices dropped, but not low enough. "Is that not Sandra?" one asked. "The same Sandra who tried to steal her aunt's husband." The other woman clicked her tongue. Beauty is good, but sense is better." Sandra kept walking as if she had not heard, but each word landed like a stone against her chest. The village had changed in small ways. A new shop stood where an old mango tree used to be. Two houses had fresh zinc roofs. The stream path had widened. Yet the most important thing had not changed at all: people still remembered. In a village, shame does not travel alone. It sits in doorways, hides inside greetings, and follows a person like dust on bare feet. When Sandra reached her mother's compound, she stopped outside the gate for a moment. She could hear the soft clatter of pots from the backyard and smell boiling yam from the kitchen. For one brief second, she wished she were a child again, before greed had entered her heart and twisted her future. But wishes could not turn time backward. She pushed the gate gently and stepped inside. Her mother, Mama F, looked up from where she was sorting pepper into a tray. At first, confusion crossed her face. Then recognition came, followed by pain. "Sandra," she said, rising slowly. Sandra dropped her bag and bent her head. She had prepared many speeches on the bus, many words of apology, many ways to explain herself. But now that she stood before the woman who had once prayed for her success, all she could say was, "Mama, I have come back." Mama F stared at her daughter's tired face, the faded clothes, the eyes that no longer held pride. She wanted to ask questions, but mothers often know when answers are already written all over a child's body. She moved closer and touched Sandra's arm. "Come inside," she said quietly. That evening, news of Sandra's return spread from compound to compound before sunset. By nightfall, children had carried the story farther than the wind. Women shook their heads over cooking fires. Men discussed it on wooden benches near the palm wine stand. Some said she had come back because the city had punished her. Others said a woman who once chased another woman's husband could never be trusted again. Sandra heard all of it. The next morning, when she stepped out to fetch water, two young wives lowered their voices and moved away from her path. At the stream, one woman pulled her daughter aside and said, "Do not learn beauty without character. Look well." Sandra pretended not to notice, but her throat tightened. She had returned thinking hardship alone had changed her. Now she was learning another truth: repentance may begin inside the heart, but the world does not rush to believe it. That night, she lay awake on a raffia mat in her mother's room, staring into the darkness. For the first time in her life, Sandra wanted nothing from anybody's husband, nothing from anybody's house, nothing she had not earned. She only wanted one thing now: a chance to become someone the village would not be ashamed to name. Sandra woke before the first rooster crowed, as if shame itself had become an alarm inside her body. The village was still wrapped in pale dawn when she tied her faded wrapper firmly around her waist and stepped into the yard with a broom. Without waiting to be told, she swept the compound, fetched water from the stream, and helped her mother wash the blackened pots from the night before. Mama F watched quietly from the doorway. By noon, Sandra followed her mother to the market. She had asked for work, any work at all, and one pepper seller finally agreed to let her help arrange tomatoes, onions, and dried fish on a wooden table. The pay was small, but Sandra accepted without complaint. She no longer had room for pride. She greeted customers respectfully, carried baskets for old women, and helped an elderly widow cross the muddy side of the road. A few people noticed. More people pretended not to. Still, whispers followed her from stall to stall. That is the one. She has come back pretending to be humble. Let her not near anybody's husband. Sandra heard every word, but she kept her head down and continued walking. Each insult stung, yet she told herself she deserved people's suspicion. Regret, she was learning, did not clear a road. It only gave a person the strength to keep walking on rough ground. Toward evening, the market became louder as buyers rushed to finish before sunset. Goats bleated. Traders called out prices. Children ran between baskets of pepper and cassava. Sandra had just finished helping the old widow arrange smoked fish when a sharp cry rose from the other side of the market. "My purse," a wealthy trader shouted. "My purse is gone." At once the noise changed.
"Oh no! Where's my purses? I can't find it! Health is a disaster! Ah! My purse! Give it back! Phew!"
Voices sharpened. Heads turned. Madame Ronk was known for carrying money in a red leather purse tied with a gold strap. She was standing near the fabric stalls, her wrapper loosened from searching frantically around her waist. Women began looking beneath tables. Men peered behind benches. Then one girl pointed suddenly.
"Look! The purse! It's right there! My purse! Oh my goodness!"
Yes, Sandra.
Then the accusations came like stones.
Sandra, you took the money.
"No, Madame Ronke! I didn't!
Liar!
I saw you!
Please!
It wasn't me!
Pay back every coin. I will prove it.
Mama Fola, the pepper seller, stepped back from Sandra's side as though disgrace could spread by touch. "I only gave you work because your mother begged me," she said. "Now see what you have brought to my table." Sandra's chest tightened. She looked from one face to another, searching for one person willing to question the accusation. She found none. Then, through the gathering crowd, Mama F appeared. She took one look at Sandra's shaking hands and pale face and understood the danger at once. "My daughter did not steal," she said firmly. Madame Ronk laughed bitterly. "And because you gave birth to her, your words are now evidence." Sandra wanted to cry, but tears would only make them think guilt had exposed itself. She swallowed hard and stood straighter. "Search me," she said. "Search my bag. Search everywhere. I did not touch that purse." The crowd searched anyway. They searched her wrapper, her bag, and even the ground around her feet, but found nothing except the purse already lying near her. That should have helped her case, yet somehow it did not. People said she must have dropped it quickly when she heard the shouting. By the time the sun sank low over the rooftops, Sandra was released with no proof against her and no honor returned to her. She walked home beside her mother through the path in total silence. That night, as crickets sang outside, Sandra sat on the doorstep and stared into the dark yard. For the first time, she understood the true cost of her past. A woman could change in 1 year, in 5 years, even in 10. But a damaged name could remain guilty long after innocent hands were raised in surrender. Market day arrived hot and restless, the kind of day when even the air seemed too busy to breathe properly. By mid-morning, the village square had filled with noise, women shouting prices, babies crying on their mothers' backs, bicycles ringing for space, and smoke rising from charcoal stoves where bean cakes sizzled in black pans. Sandra had returned to the market because Mama F insisted that hiding at home would only make the whisper stronger. "A person cannot outrun every eye," her mother had said. "Sometimes you must let people see you standing." So Sandra came, though her heart felt heavy. She kept to the edge of the stalls, helping Mama F arrange cassava and dried pepper on a mat near the well. She avoided long conversations, answered politely when spoken to, and lowered her eyes whenever she felt people studying her. Even so, she noticed that some buyers chose another path rather than pass too close. Children stared openly. 2 women paused near the okra stand, looked in her direction, and then whispered behind their palms. Sandra pretended not to see. She had spent many nights telling herself that change was not proven by comfort but by endurance. Around noon, the heat sharpened. A gust of wind pushed through the square, lifting dust, wrappers, and the smell of kerosene from a nearby food store. At the same time, a trader named Ayabos leaned over her stove to turn bean cakes. Nobody noticed when the cloth hanging beside the fire caught first. It started as a small orange tongue at the edge of the fabric. Then the wind rose again. Within seconds, the flame climbed.
Ah! What is that sprouting head? Fire! It's a water! It's burning! Oh no! It's climbing! Fire! Run! The mountain's burning! This way! Hurry! I've got you! We're safe!
Then she heard a cry unlike the rest. It was smaller. Trapped. She turned and saw a little girl, no more than 5, crouched behind a fallen display stand near the burning store. One side of the wooden frame had collapsed, pinning part of her wrapper. The child's eyes were wide with terror. She screamed for her mother, but the roar of the flames swallowed her voice. For a moment, Sandra froze. Every instinct told her to stay back. The fire was too close now. People around her were already retreating. But the little girl could not move, and no one else had noticed where she was. Then Sandra dropped the basket she was holding and ran toward the fire.
Sandra, no! Come back! I have to save the child! Sandra, it's too dangerous! I won't let them die! Sandra, no! No! I have her! She's alive! My baby, you! We see you now.
She needs you.
Around them, the market had gone strangely quiet. People stared at Sandra as if they had never seen her before. Even those who still held baskets and half-saved goods seemed to forget their losses for one long moment. Sandra stood trembling. For the first time since her return, the village was looking at her without suspicion. Only shock. Only silence. Even Mama F, breathless and shaken, looked at her daughter with new eyes, as though courage had stepped out from underneath disgrace. And somewhere inside that silence, the first tiny crack appeared in the wall her past had built around her. The story of Sandra's rescue spread beyond the village before the burns on her hands had begun to heal. By the second day, traders from nearby markets were repeating it, how the same woman people had mocked had run into fire to save a child not her own. Some told it with amazement. Some told it with caution, as though one brave act could not yet wash away an old stain. But by the end of the week, the story reached the city. It reached Auntie Biola. When Biola first heard Sandra's name again, she felt something tighten in her chest. For a moment she was back in that dim bedroom, standing at the doorway, watching betrayal lift its face without shame. She remembered the anger she had swallowed, the humiliation she had buried, and the way Sandra's greed had nearly poisoned the peace of her home. But then the woman telling the story added that Sandra had gone into a burning stall and brought out a little girl with her bare hands. Biola did not speak at once. When the story ended, she sat in silence. 3 days later, a car stopped at the entrance of Mama F's compound. Children ran ahead to announce the visitor. Women peered over fences. By the time Biola stepped out of the car in a blue wrapper and blouse, the village was awake with curiosity. Sandra was seated on a low stool in the shade, her bandaged hands resting in her lap. When she looked up and saw her aunt, all the color drained from her face. For one heartbeat she thought she was dreaming. Then she rose too quickly, nearly knocking over the stool behind her. "Auntie," she whispered. Biola stood still, dignified, her face calm but unreadable. "I came to see with my own eyes," she said. No one in the compound moved. Mama F wiped her hands on her wrapper and greeted Biola, then offered her a seat. Biola thanked her but did not sit. Her eyes remained on Sandra, who stood like someone waiting for judgment again. The villagers expected shouting. They expected blame. But Biola surprised them all. "I want to speak with her alone," she said. Mama F nodded and quietly led the watching neighbors away from the yard. Soon only the two women remained beneath the shade of the old pear tree. For a few moments neither spoke. Sandra could not bear it. She fell to her knees. "I have no excuse," she said, tears spilling before she could stop them. "I was wicked. I was proud. You gave me food, shelter, kindness, and I repaid you with evil thoughts. I wanted what was not mine. I wanted your place. Since that day, I have carried shame everywhere. Even when people insulted me, I knew I had first wounded myself. I am sorry, Auntie. Not because life became hard, but because I now understand what I did." Biola listened without interruption. Her eyes did not soften quickly. Pain that enters through trust does not leave in a hurry. Sandra lowered her head. "If you cannot forgive me, I will understand. I only ask that you believe this one thing: I am no longer that girl." At last Biola spoke. "When a pot breaks," she said slowly, "you do not pretend it was never broken. The crack remains. The shape changes. But sometimes, if it is handled with care, it can still be used for something good." Sandra lifted her face. Biola looked at the bandages on her hands, then back into her eyes. "I did not come here to reopen old wounds," she said. "I came because I heard you risked yourself to save a child. That does not erase the past. But it tells me that something inside you may truly have changed." Sandra began to sob openly, not from shame this time, but from the shock of mercy touching the edge of her sorrow. Biola stepped forward and placed one hand on her shoulder. "This is not restored trust," she said. "It is only the beginning of a chance." And for Sandra, that was more hope than she had ever dared to ask for. By the morning Auntie Biola was ready to leave the village, the air around Sandra had changed. The stares were no longer as sharp. The whispers had not disappeared, but they had softened. Some people now looked at her with suspicion, as if they were asking whether disgrace had broken her pride. Sandra did not blame them for doubting. She had learned that trust, once shattered, returns slowly. Before Biola entered the car, she called Sandra aside. Mama F stood nearby, pretending to arrange vegetables, though her ears were fixed on every word. Sandra approached with lowered eyes. "I have thought about what to do," Biola said. Sandra's heart pounded. She expected a warning or farewell. She did not expect mercy. "In the city, I once planned to help you build a future," Biola said. "You destroyed that chance with your greed. I will not pretend that never happened. But if you truly want a clean life now, then your future must be built by honesty, not hunger." Sandra looked up. "I have spoken with a trader in the next town," Biola continued. "She sells fabric and wrappers. I will provide money for a start. Not enough for pride. Enough for work.
Mama,
You will
I've
open a
decided to
modest
help
stall in the
Sandra.
market.
Thank you, Biola. This means
You will
so
keep
much.
good records.
Oh, my child, you
You
have
will
such
not
a good
waste
heart.
this
It
chance.
feels right, Mama.
And you
Bless
will remember
both.
that this is mercy, not entitlement." Sandra's throat tightened. "Auntie." Biola lifted her hand. "Do not thank me with tears alone. Thank me with a life that no longer brings shame." Mama F turned away and wiped her eyes. Within 2 weeks, Sandra's stall stood beneath a patched shade near the corner of the market. It was small, holding folded ankara prints, simple wrappers, headscarves, and a few children's clothes hanging from a line above the table. But Sandra treated it like treasure. She arrived before sunrise to sweep the ground, arrange each fabric carefully, and greet every customer with respect. She no longer dressed to attract attention. She dressed neatly, spoke modestly, and kept her eyes steady. When people bargained hard, she answered with patience. When others tested her with suspicion, she did not answer with bitterness. At first, many passed her by. Some still murmured, "That is Sandra." But slowly, things changed. A mother bought cloth for her daughter's naming ceremony. An old woman returned because Sandra had measured honestly and refused to cheat her. 2 young wives who once moved away from her at the stream now stopped to price headscarves. Business grew slowly. One afternoon, the little girl Sandra had rescued came to the store holding her mother's hand. The child smiled shyly and offered Sandra a small bunch of yellow flowers tied with string. Sandra received them as though they were gold. The girl's mother looked at her for a long moment before speaking. "What you did for my daughter," she said quietly, "I will never forget." Sandra swallowed hard. "Thank you," she said. That evening, as she counted the day's earnings beneath the fading light, Sandra realized her hands were trembling. Not from shame. Not from fear. From gratitude. Months passed, and the store became known not for scandal, but for fairness. People still remembered Sandra's fall, but they also began to remember her labor, her changed ways, and the fire she had entered when others ran. Her past was no longer the only story tied to her name. One evening, as the market closed, Mama F stood beside the stall and smiled. "You wanted to become madam once," she said. Sandra looked at the neat rows of fabric, the coins she had earned honestly, and the women waving goodbye as they left. "Yes," she said softly. "But now I understand something better." "What is that?" her mother asked. Sandra smiled through tears. "A seed stolen from another woman can never give peace. But a life built with clean hands will always sit well." And at last, the village no longer spoke Sandra's name as a warning alone. It began, slowly, to speak it as proof that even a fallen person can rise again, if pride dies, truth is faced, and change is lived instead of merely promised.